Hey guys, this is Ivan from PintadoTennisTraining, and today we're going to go over on why you're stuck at the 4-5 level and how can we get you to the 5-0 level. Let's get to it. As number one, I'm going to start with the serve. At a 4-5 level, you won't see a lot of leg drive versus maybe at the 5-0 level. Now you get more of a jump into it. I would say just worry about your stance, making sure that you have a little bit of a body turn before you even starting to serve. So if the court was on that side and I'm facing this way, this is what I would look like. And if you don't know how to bend your knees, one way to think about it is as your knees are starting to bend and you kind of want them to go kind of together, you want them to follow, whether you're doing pinpoint or platform. I prefer the platform, but you could do either. You want to make sure that as you're slightly bending your knees, that your body is slightly leaning back. That way, it's easier to have a nice body tilt. You don't want to be like straight up with here. You want to have a little bit of a tilt with the body. So when you add the tilt with the knee bend, now you can explode more into the ball by using your bigger muscle groups. So you kind of look like something like a spring. Just think like a spring. You need to look like one and then be able to shoot forward rather than maybe having less body turn and no shoulder turn and very little knee bend. And like this, now you have something more to rotate into. So from this side, it would look like this. So if my feet are too aligned here and I just go straight up, I'm gonna look like, and I'm not trying to put this player on the wrong category, but if you watch somebody like Alex de Minaur, he's a professional tennis player, but he doesn't really have a ton of body turn.
Notice that he lacks range of motion, however, it comes through very well.
Don't get me wrong, his serve is still exceptional, but could always improve. But if you look at someone like Roger or Raonic or even Sampras,
here you can see a bigger body turn.
They used to turn a good amount before being able to rotate into the ball, and I feel like if you want to optimize your serve, you need to start adding a little bit more body turn. You obviously don't want to turn too much, like maybe like McEnroe back in the day, but you should have some kind of body turn with a knee bend. And once you put everything together, now you can get a little bit more pop on your motion. So guys, keep this in mind. I picked the serve as my number one. Okay guys, next up, let's target the forehand ground stroke. Because when I watch 4-5 tennis, everything starts to look a little bit more like a professional forehand. With the take back, the racket is up, the left hand on the racket. All the small fundamental things are there. Now, the things that perhaps separate the 4-5 to the 5-0 player, and even the 5-0 to the 5-5 player, it's the ability to be aggressive with your forehand to really penetrate the court. So I'll see a lot of consistent forehands at the 4-5 level, but perhaps the one thing that's missing compared to some 5-0 players is the ability to hit through the ball more. And sometimes when players try to hit through the ball more, the ball ends up sailing long due to either mechanics or poor footwork or perhaps the wrong type of swing path. So it could be more than one thing. But let's assume that you have a short ball and you're a 4-5 player. The things that you want to remember are that your racket head does not need to drop too much below the level of the ball. A lot of times you just want to keep your racket above and just think about swinging through. Not just on the put away shot, but just on any ground stroke in general. You want to think more of rotation rather than getting super under the ball to create a massive low to high. I'm not saying that you can't drop your hitting arm and then hit on top, because Rafa and Roger do this exceptionally. But just take a look at people like Alcaraz, Novak. The racket head does not drop so much below the level of the ball before they're going to hit through the ball and really hit that penetrating shot.
Here what you guys are going to notice is that the hitting arm is not going to drop too much prior to the forward swing. Therefore, it's a penetrating shot.
Now, some things to help you with this shot is, again, loading on your right leg, landing on your left leg, or perhaps staying level and really keeping your body low as you're rotating through, not trying to come up or locking this leg as you're rotating, rather than maybe just staying low and rotating through. Another reason why you may not be able to hit through the ball as much is maybe you don't have enough racket lag. So maybe you have the take back right, but there's not enough lag coming through your swing, and that could be because of a couple of reasons. Maybe it's your take back. Maybe you're a little bit tense through your take back. So if your right arm is too tense, the racket will not lag as much as it could. Maybe you start with the right take back where the racket is up, but before you get into the slap position, the racket is slightly open, which I do see sometimes. And ideally, you want to keep the strings more close through your take back. So you can just keep it as simple as racket is above, and then when the racket falls into the slot position, I like to have my racket slightly above my wrist, and we're gonna start pulling through the butt cap like this, as opposed to something more open, like a take back more open. So those are some of my takes on the forehand technique. Okay, guys, here's another reason. Perhaps you have killer forehand, but you have no backhand. This is another big one that I've seen a lot. Sometimes I'll see player with a really good forehand, really good serve, and when the ball comes to the backhand side, it's like, ooh, it's no bueno, no good. So again, if you don't have a backhand and maybe all you have is like a some version of a slice, maybe it's not even like a full slice. Maybe it's more like a push. Again, you gotta learn how to develop a backhand technique. Maybe you're close to a really good backhand technique. Maybe you're just missing the little key ingredients that makes a better fundamentally sound stroke. So let me give you some ideas. If you have a one-handed backhand, perhaps I'll see the take back looks good, but maybe the racket does not drop to the optimal position. Maybe it only gets to either here, and therefore you cannot truly brush up on the ball. Maybe you'll get a little bit more side spin than brush. Or perhaps you have a really good racket drop, but not enough roll at the end. Whereas you gotta want to have the whole package. You gotta want to have a nice body turn, a nice racket drop, and everything else should kind of flow with the weight transfer and everything. So again, pay attention to your fundamentals. Always remember racket up, racket drop, brush, and transfer your weight forward. If you have a two-handed backhand, same thing. Maybe you have a really nice technique, or maybe you don't. Maybe the racket just goes straight back and the arm does a little too much of the work. Or maybe we got to start adding a little bit more of body rotation. Maybe you got to start adding that hip, that back hip need to push into the ball more. Maybe the legs are a little too straight up, and so don't really know how to use the legs properly. Whereas it needs to feel like you're sitting in a chair a little more, and then you're pushing and you're coming out of a chair.
Hey guys, notice how he starts with the racket above his wrist, then the racket falls, and then he begins his forward movement.
So it needs to feel like you're lifting. So just keep this in mind a little bit. Again, if you don't have a backhand, you gotta want to learn maybe proper fundamentals to be able to have a bit of a weapon on the backhand side. Just like your beautiful forehand, add a beautiful backhand. Speaking of backhands, if you have a version of a slice, but it's not maybe a slice that can be either offensive or at least get you back in the point, I recommend maybe messing around with your take back, making sure that the racket maybe not super open. Maybe start with the racket a little bit more like straighter. That way you can come down on the ball more aggressively, rather than go open. Not saying that this does not work. I think Murray's take back is a little bit more open and he still has a really good slice. Again, his grip is a little bit different than Continental, but we get the idea. So again, developing a good slice technique is also important. Making sure that your wrist doesn't break through the contact phase, and that you continue to go after. So nice Continental grip, nice nice knife, as opposed to maybe just blocking, maybe adding a little bit more of a knife. And again, this slice technique is slightly advanced, but if you're trying to go from 4-5 to 5-0, you need to start learning the little key differences that separate the better players from the good players. Hey guys, I hope you liked this video. I gave you a couple of insights of things that you could do to improve your game. Obviously, there are more things that I could have gone over, like maybe lobbing, developing a good lob, maybe smarter shot selection, but there's a lot to that goes into going from 4-5 to 5-0, and you just want to target the biggest things when it comes to your game. So guys, like and subscribe for more content. I like making this kind of content, so stay tuned for the next one and take care.